Hello, fellow fools, and welcome to your timeless pick a pile reading. My name is Bren. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm super excited to be conducting this very magical tarot card reading experience with you today. If you're new here, welcome, welcome. So glad to have you here. And if you're returning, I'm so glad you're back. Thanks for supporting me and this channel by being here. And I am truly hoping that this video offers you the wisdom that you need in this moment right now. So again, if you're new here, the way that this works is this. It is a timeless reading. So although we are focusing on the lunation that's happening during the time of recording, which is the Gemini new moon, it doesn't mean that you can't watch this at any time. These insights, you might need these insights at a different time, later date. So don't you worry if you were called to this video. There's probably a reason for that. And you can continue watching despite you maybe not being in a Gemini new moon lunation at the time of watching. So we're going to start with an overall view of the astrology. And by the way, we do have timestamps. So if you want to skip around, you're totally welcome to. If not, the whole video will have things to offer something for you. So we're going to start with an astrological overview. It's what's happening with this lunation. Then from there, we're going to do a collective reading where it's just going to be checking in with what everyone might be experiencing right now in a general way. And then from there, you get to choose a pile, whatever's resonating a little bit more with you at this time, to get a little bit more specific insights for what you are experiencing at this time. Okay. So without further ado, oh, and by the way, this is Frank. This is during her nap time. We're recording at a different time than usual. So she's hopefully not going to be too disturbed by this. Anyway, so we're going to start with the Gemini new moon. Hey, Geminis. Hopefully you are enjoying this new moon so far. The mantra of this lunation is communication is key. And that definitely is the number one thing that I wanted to, that I was feeling for this lunation is Mercury, the planet that rules Gemini, is currently in the zodiac sign Cancer, which is the nurturer of the zodiac. It is the mommy of the zodiac, it is a crab, so they are really ooey gooey delicious on the inside, but also they have that protective shell to make sure that they, can be safe. And if the claws need to come out, they'll come out. But overall, it is generally a watery emotional sign. Gemini is a mutable air sign, and Cancer is a cardinal water sign. So that's really they're two very different energies in a certain kind of way, but because they're so close to each other, they're next to each other on the zodiac wheel, there is still a relation to each other. So what I really want to mention for this lunation, this is the lunation chart of this new moon, this Gemini new moon that is exacting in Denver, Colorado on June 14th, 2026 at 8:54 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And the biggest message that came through is really nurturing communication. How can we have healthier communications with people? The overall, I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself, but I think it's important to just mention that the overall energy of this lunation is the Ace of Chalices, or the Ace of Cups in tarot. And how I interpreted that is really about new beginnings emotionally. So that could be literally meeting a new partner or meeting a new friend, making new relationships, or it's just about having new beginnings within the relationships that you already have. So Gemini, they're the twins, right? They want to communicate. They are little tricksters. They love to gather information and, again, communication. They're an air sign. They are about socializing. And when we bring in the water into that air, it's also about how do we feel when we communicate things? How do we feel when certain people communicate to us in a certain kind of way? Because there are different communication styles. Some people really love to be direct, and some people love a little bit more flowery energy or language so they can receive the message a little bit better. So it's really up to you to decide, what is a productive type of communication that I am either receiving or not, and what is not, and what new beginnings can I have in my relationships in order to stimulate some new beginnings that are very fruitful and help us all feel emotionally supported and loved and respected. Definitely respect is part of that. Because even if you don't get along with someone, if you don't like someone, having a conversation that can be productive or at least professional, especially in a business setting, that can go a really long way. So something to keep in mind. Another thing that I love to say, Gemini is like the perfect zodiac to use this mantra, which is be curious rather than judgmental. Because sometimes we make a judgment about, we're human, we're naturally going to maybe judge something here, there. But what we're really being encouraged to do at this time is, instead of going straight to that judgment call or going straight to assuming things, why don't we get a little curious? Why don't we ask questions? There's definitely a time and place, because certain questions are not appropriate to ask people. But you could always pull someone aside and be like, hey, I have a question that I really want to ask you. I don't really know if it's appropriate, but is this a safe space for me to do so? No pressure. I would love to become closer to you, and asking this question, I feel like could do that, but also I don't want to offend you or make you feel, like I'm being insensitive in a certain kind of way. It is Pride Month, so a lot of people are probably asking a lot of questions about, and it's also Juneteenth here in the US, which is a celebration of the ending of slavery and freedom, things like that. So a lot of questions have been coming up that kind of seem inappropriate in a certain kind of way, because, people are curious. Especially, I get a lot of questions as a trans person myself. I get some questions from kids, especially when I'm wearing my little mustache, where it's like, why do you wear that? What is that? Like, and it's kind of like, the parents usually are like, oh, that's rude, honey. Don't ask that. But I always love those kind of questions personally, especially when it's coming from a kid. It is a little different from an adult for sure. But, they're just interested and they're curious. And usually that's an opportunity to explain, like, hey, this is a gender affirming makeup that I use. It is actually my real hair. I just enhance it because it makes me feel more like myself. And I hope that by me showing up authentically helps you show up authentically as well. So, you can ask these sensitive questions, or, you can have fears around these kinds of communications. But ultimately, if the heart is pure, if you are asking the right people, and not just random strangers who don't owe you anything as well, that can be really productive, and again, help us really have moments of bonding rather than pushing ourselves away, because we are in a very divisive time, I should say. Usually there's a lot of finger pointing about, like, oh, the world sucks because of you and your belief systems or whatever. And what I really see this lunation trying to heal is, just like, how can we be compassionate and try on different hats and different perspectives without being volatile, without having to, get under people's skin. And again, sometimes we will have those moments. Again, we're talking about Cancer the crab, which does have claws. So especially when we're vulnerable about something, sometimes people will ask me things about my transness where I'm like, oh, that's like still a really sensitive topic for me. I don't know if I'm ready to answer those kind of questions or whatever. But again, it really depends on the situation about, like, okay, what am I meant to learn from this situation? Is this somewhere where I need to set a boundary? Like, hey, that's actually not an appropriate question to ask. Because not everyone knows and not everyone is malicious. I think that's something that we, like, Spirit really wants us to keep into consideration, is sometimes people make decisions or say things just because, they're fools. We're all fools. That's what this channel is all about. Like, there's fortune within being foolish, and we're going to make mistakes sometimes, and that's okay. But it's really about trying to make that right, and trying to also keep relationships strong through boundaries sometimes. Because again, if someone doesn't know that something's not okay, but you let them do it anyway, you're going to build resentment or have some sort of issue there. So I really am feeling this lunation being a moment of connection. We are also finishing out Jupiter's cycle in Cancer. Jupiter's been in Cancer, the zodiac sign, for about a year now. And so it's about to enter Leo very soon. But before it does that, I believe it'll have, a conjunction with Mercury. Mercury's actually going retrograde soon. So I actually don't know specifically when Mercury and Jupiter are going to connect, but I do see that as an opportunity for higher levels of thinking and processing information, because Jupiter's that planet of philosophy, bigger life, or bigger expansive thoughts, things like that, whereas Mercury's more like the day-to-day thought processing, communication, things like that. So it's like, the smaller level versus the big level, and when they meet together, it's just an opportunity for us to be connected with the bigger picture and the day-to-day smaller picture, especially when it comes to our thought patterns and our belief systems and how we connect with others. Okay. So that's all I really would like to say about the new moon in Gemini. So we're going to move on to the collective reading. So this is going to just, again, be a moment where we're going to tap into the collective energies. What is everyone kind of generally feeling through this lunation, and see what comes up. The two decks that we're going to be working with today are Truth and Fate. This is Ask, Listen, and Give. This is a card game, actually, that a buddy of mine, Daniel, made himself. And he's like one of the most genius people that I've ever met. And hopefully the box will come apart. It's like it's a beautiful box. But this is a really cool card deck that has a lot of questions, and each card has a different book as well, and like a different question. So we're gonna open that in a moment. But that's one of the decks we're gonna be working with. And then the other deck that I chose for us today is the Spirit of the Animals Oracle. I have been working a lot with animal decks lately. This is not the deck that I usually work with, but and hummingbird came up. When I see hummingbirds, it reminds me of my grandma. I just love that. But I do believe that we all can connect with animals in some kind of way. I don't want to block you. I'm sorry. You need to be front and center, my dear little kitty. My dear little love bug. So those are the two decks we're going to be working with today. And I will say I did randomly choose a tarot card for the collective reading today. And then I intentionally picked the Pick a Pile card tarot, because I always like to use a little tarot, but the two decks I chose today, first time I'm using two oracle decks, which is nice. It's very Gemini, new beginnings, and trying, something new and new hats, things like that. Because sometimes when we lean too much on the familiar, we get stagnant or things like that. So the card that I did randomly pick for the collective reading today is the Ace of Cups. So that's all about new beginnings, especially when it comes to how we feel. And there is a cup overflowing here. This is one of the most beautiful aces in the deck, in my opinion, because it's a holographic card, so you can see it move, which is really cool. And I'll have the deck, I forget what this deck is called. It's like the Fable Makers deck. I'll make sure that will all be linked or noted in the show notes. So if you want any of these decks, they will be there. But this, Ace of Chalices, I see just a lot of liberation within relationships, because sometimes when we have expectations or we really want to change someone, that's not fostering what the relationship really is. Like, sometimes people do need to change and grow up, for sure, but also you have to meet people where they're at too if you're going to want to keep them in your life. So you can't have expectations of someone that goes against who they are. And so I do see like a new beginning. Like, I've been seeing this in a lot of my readings too. Like at Casa Bonita last night, I had some readings about someone like having to cut ties with their dad, and like they love their dad, and it's also like too emotionally laborious to continue a connection with them at this point in time. And something that came up was like, you know what? Good for you. Claim that. Like, own that. And also just know that if down the line, when you grow and you feel a little bit more capable, you can always reconnect with him. You are not obligated to do that, but nothing's permanent. And that's another really big thing that's been coming up lately, is like just the impermanence of literally everything. And that's what really gives us an opportunity to express gratitude, because I know one day my poor little kitty cat's going to pass away and I'm going to literally be a mess. I know one day I'm going to literally pass away. I know that someday, I might not have this blanket or my environment, I might not always even have this YouTube channel. Who knows? I hope that's not the truth. But, one day it's, it might just, who knows what's going to happen to our digital footprints and things like that. So this is really about understanding the beauty of impermanence and knowing that a lot of things are just temporary. And if you're not happy about something now, you don't have to worry too much, because it'll be temporary. It might feel heavy. It might feel, really getting in tune with your feelings. For an air moon, this does feel pretty emotional. We're really bonding that air element, Gemini, with the water element of Cancer. I really am seeing that little dance going on. And we're going back to the astrology. We do have a lot of air energy as well. I mean, it's a new moon, so both the sun and the moon are in Gemini. But the moon will be moving very quickly into Cancer, and the sun's moving into Cancer very soon as well. So something to consider. And also the planet Uranus, the planet of sudden changes, insights, and genius in a lot of ways, that's also in Gemini very recently. And so there is this energy of also like, it's okay to just randomly have new ideas. It's okay to totally feel like things are new, like new beginnings, all that kind of stuff. So I just want to get a little more comfortable. Look at this little stretchy baby. Anyway, I love Frank. Feel free to say hi to Frank in the chat. She'll appreciate that. All right. So that's the general overall view, like card that I should say for this lunation. It is going to feel a little watery for a air new moon. And remember, communication is key. So don't forget to say your truth. You know, it's better to say something imperfectly than not at all. Sometimes use your discretion with that, because, you know, certain people you'll be able to say certain things to and others not, and that's okay. But sometimes just getting the truth out helps people realize where you're at, because not everyone will always know. Like, I'm imagining someone who's like a do-it-all person. Like, they literally, I don't know how they do it. They're superhuman in a lot of ways. They can do this, that, and the other. But maybe because people witness that person excelling so much, they don't realize that that person has a lot of burdens and a lot of weight on their shoulders, and they might be on the brink of a mental breakdown or something, but they, like, you wouldn't know because that's not the behavior that they're expressing. So if that's you, maybe expressing like, hey, I would like help. Like, I actually need help. I know I'm capable of doing it all, but also it's not sustainable to do that, and I need help. So don't be afraid to do that. There is a saying that's coming up that I wrote down not too long ago, so I'm hoping I can just pop it open and find it in my planner journal here. Behavior is communication. So I think that's really interesting too. Especially, you know, Gemini is more logical than a Cancer. You know, they're more like fact-based. And so sometimes we feel a certain way that is not really always based in reality. Like, your feelings are very powerful and strong, but also just know that behavior is communication. So for example, if you're really yearning after someone, or maybe someone you know is yearning after someone, but that someone is being closed off or like not giving them the time of day, maybe that's when you want to note that, hey, behavior is communication. And if this person isn't giving me behavior that is indicating that they actually are into me or whatever, then that's probably saying something. Like, and also, if you're really hung up on someone, why don't you just ask, get out of the way, get the truth, so then you can move on with your life and not build narratives around what could be. Because, yeah, I'm thinking about Neptune right now. Neptune's the planet of delusions and things like that. And I wonder if that's making an aspect. I'm an intuitive astrologer and reader, so I do look at the chart before I start these readings, but also I'm like, okay, spirit, like before I start, I'm like, okay, just please draw me to the things that I need to talk about, because there's a lot going on in every single chart. So yeah, we do have Neptune, the planet of dreams, delusions as well, in Aries at 4 degrees. And that's, yeah, making an aspect to the Uranus energy that I was talking about. And Venus is also kind of involved. So yeah, there could be a little delusions in love that might be ramping up, building up at this time, or in the near future. So just keep that in mind. If, you know, just communicate, and also don't make things uncomfortable. I went to the eye doctor yesterday, had the hottest doctor ever, like, you know, but I'm not going to ask that person out. Like, that is not really appropriate. That's their workplace. And I think there's a time and place, you know, but I just, you know, you can appreciate a moment. Again, it's a temporary moment. Like, cool, I had like a cute little crush on my doctor, but I don't want to make it weird because it's just not appropriate, you know? So just consider how behavior is communication in your relationships right now. And also the other thing that I wrote was, I am the story I tell myself I am. And I really love that that's coming up right now, because Gemini is all about, it can be about storytelling for sure. Geminis are, again, they're an air sign, which means they're about thinking and communicating and logic and all these kinds of things. So, and now I'm already forgetting what I had just said. But, we're the stories that we tell ourselves. So if we feel like we're nothing, if we feel, or we're telling ourselves this narrative, or like, oh, if only I was more perfect or whatever, that's what we become. So really understand the power of your mind at this time and the power of your words. If you apologize a lot, maybe you keep note of like, why are you apologizing so often? I know it's a cultural thing for us Americans, at least if you're an American person, but also, that patterning, you apologizing for existing, it does speak to your inner psychology, So I know it's a pattern and things like that, but maybe this is your opportunity to just be really mindful about like, what am I saying? Am I being mindful about what I'm saying? Am I meaning what I'm saying? Or am I just saying it to say it? Am I just on autopilot running through the motions or whatever? Something to consider. Okay, we need to start drawing cards because we gotta. This is what we're here for, right? So we're gonna start with an animal card. There is like a white dove on this Ace of Chalices as well, so I do want to just throw it out there that white usually symbolizes purity. Birds symbolize a freedom of some kind, being a messenger as well, from being able to reach the ground. Even sea animals as well, they can reach the waters and also reach the sky. So very versatile animals are birds. So really see in your life right now too about like, how do I connect with my mind? But how do I also connect with my heart and body? How do I also like stay grounded in the way that I'm thinking about things and communicating with people? Sometimes that's why journaling or, talking to a therapist or something can be very helpful, because you're giving your thoughts some physicality, and so you can really see it better for what it is instead of being kind of illusion or an illusion in your mind. Ooh, okay, the dog is the animal that we have here, and we have a dog here. This is Kiki on my back wall. My brother's dog, Kiki, and she is definitely a family pet for sure, but he got that for me because we love Kiki, but I had nowhere else to put it. This was the only wall in my house that I had room, and so now she's forever in these videos, which I think is just lovely because I do love her. I love animals. And hi, Frank. Okay, I'm bothering her. She's like, I'm trying to sleep. Stop petting me. Then stop being so cute, Frank. Just, what is it about having an animal that you just want to annoy them sometimes? Anyway, but the card says, like, not only are there dogs on this card, but there's also like a wolf, like big wolf in the background. So dogs, and the key word is friend. It says, today I will love without condition. My energy and enthusiasm are an inspiration. I choose to be happy. I'm a protector and friend. Oh, that's really sweet. And what I feel like that's really talking about is like, we have a lot of relationships in our life. Sometimes they're romantic, sometimes they're familial, but also friendship is so important. That's our chosen family, and these people can have profound impacts on our lives. And what makes me so sad, especially in a world that, again, we're becoming more divisive, is that a lot of people don't even know how to socialize or make friends. And that is really sad to me because, we need community. We are community animals. And I feel like the dog reminds us of that. And I definitely can relate with Frank here. Frank is so loyal to me. Frank is my best friend in so many ways. I have a few best friends, but it's different. This is a different kind of friendship, and it's just very pure and wholesome. So I feel like what Spirit's really trying to tell the collective, or telling us in this moment, is that all of us are really trying to evaluate, like, who is our community? Who's actually loyal to us? And sometimes our friends aren't even human. Sometimes it's the trees outside. Sometimes it is the pets that you have around you, or, so many other things. But I love how it also talks about loving without condition. And I do think that kind of comes back earlier to what we were saying about the Ace of Chalices, about like having new beginnings within a relationship. If you know me, I've been trying to like end a relationship for like a year now, but I can't get away. I can't get away from this person. And I love this person very deeply. So, I've kind of recently in personal experience kind of come to terms with, you know what? I just need to accept that this person's in my life, and they're going to be doing things that I don't like in certain ways, but I love this person and I want this person in my life. So I'm going to have to, put some of that aside in order to make sure that we have a healthy connection, because I also have been operating in not the healthiest way in that connection. So my priority is to be a better friend and to be a better communicator and lover in general for the people in my lives, but also really close people, you know, because it can be really scary to be really close to people and intimate. There's like a lot of like truths that come out. They get to see the sides of you that you don't always want to portray to the world, you know? So yeah, something to just consider about where the health of your relationships are and knowing what you need in order to have fulfilling and loyal connections with people. Because also it's about quality over quantity. You don't need to have a million friends unless that's like the way you work. But, you know, having like 2 really solid friends is better than none, first of all. But also that, yeah, just also know you can't put your entire community into one person. So keep that in mind too, because that's actually how we push people away, is when we expect too much of them to meet too many of our needs. So just really know who your community is, and maybe you pet a dog. Maybe you also work with Hecate. Hecate is a goddess. Is she a goddess? Deity. That's really what I'm trying to say. I think she is a goddess. I mean, hell yeah. But yeah, she's a deity that works with dogs too. And there was a lot of lost dogs in my neighborhood that I kept feeling like I had to rescue, and I was really frustrated. And my friend Mia told me, or we came to the conclusion that that was probably Hecate, you know, communicating in a certain kind of way. And I do feel like when we do things for others, like, again, like a dog or something, like who needs to be returned home or whatever, we get a good karmic balance of some kind, you know, even if it's just like feeling the reward of, wow, I really saved someone today. I really helped make sure that a dog didn't get hit by a car and was returned home. You know, some people are irresponsible dog owners and keep losing their dogs, and that's a whole nother thing. But also, I remember when Kiki got lost a few years ago, and my brother and I were devastated. We were like, I took off work. We were looking for her for 3 days, and she did end up coming home. But like, you know, that wasn't out of negligence necessarily. She was just a really anxious dog that when he went to work, she got out, you know. And since then, he's definitely kept her under wraps. And now she hasn't escaped since, because he will not give her the opportunity. That was too traumatic, and, you know, things like that. But you just never know why an animal might have gotten out, and who really loves that animal, or, you know, you just never know. So anyway, sometimes spirit takes me on a tangent. I'm like, where are we going? Is this going somewhere? So anyway, we're going to refocus. Okay. And we're going to be drawing a card out of this Truth or Fate deck. And we have Truth, the Secret of Fire. And we have like a crown surrounded by like an infinity. It looks like a 8, I guess, but it really kind of looks like an infinity sign to me. And it's engulfed in flames. I wish I could get closer, but I really don't want to disrupt Frank's sleep. So if you don't see the card, that's okay. I'll tell you what's up. So it says, to ignite inner flames, you must still rise, unprepared, burning all excuses. Ooh la la. To ignite inner flames, you must still rise, unprepared, burning all excuses. Well, fire to me also is very like authentic. Like fire can't hide itself. You're going to feel it. It's hot. You're going to see it. It's light, and it's consuming. It will eat things. And sometimes it'll consume in ways that are great, like a bonfire. We love to burn things at a bonfire, but also it could be a house fire, which is much less favorable of how fire can consume. So I do feel like what questions are coming up are like, what is consuming you right now? And like, oh, this is what the message is. We all have destructive energy within us, right? And we need to destroy things sometimes in order to rebirth things, or like construct things. So, you know, if we have a building that's full of mold and asbestos and it's just not, it's beyond repair, we want to destruct it. We want to demo that in order for us to clean the slate, in order to maybe build something new, or let nature do its thing and grow. So I feel like there's something in your life that really, you know, you have access to this destructive energy, and it's really up to you to decide, what do I need to destroy in order for me to then be able to construct or be productive? I'm seeing this as like constructive destruction, because if you don't, like, this energy is already there. So if you don't mindfully put this destructive energy somewhere, you're going to self-destruct, or you're going to destroy something that you might not want to destroy, you know? So I do see this card as kind of offering you, like, destructive energy can be good. Just choose what you need to destroy in order to construct something better. Okay, so the question on the back of this card says, when have you been the most motivated in your life? Why do you think you were so motivated? So that's something to maybe reflect on for the next 6 days. Like, what motivates me? Where is my inner fire coming from? You know, that's not going to be obligations a lot of the time. That's going to be like, wow, I really enjoy doing X, so that's motivating to me. Or I get a dopamine hit when I engage with this. That's what motivates me, you know? So that's something to consider. And just, again, like, burning all excuses. I think that's a really powerful energy that's coming through, where it's like, hey, wake up call. No one's saving you except for you. So you have no excuses if you are not living the life that you desire. Like, in a way, I know there's restrictions and things like that, but if you're not happy where you're at, this should be the fire under your butt telling you it's time to make a move. It's time to make a change, because what you don't change, you choose. So, and that's where you're going to be able to wear your crown. There's infinite possibilities, but it's time for you to really step up and destroy what needs to go so you can really claim what's rightfully yours. Okay? Destroying, it could be a relationship, it could be a job. Don't do anything reckless, you know. Fire can be very consuming and it can spread very fast. So don't just be like, oh, I'm going to move and I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to break up with my partner and I'm going to tell all my friends to go F off. You know, if you do all that, you're going to be left with nothing. And that's not what we want. We want to just burn what's, you know, I'm thinking like a forest fire, in the sense of like, sometimes things do have to burn, but in order for new growth to take place, and, you know, a controlled fire is much more productive than like a fire that burns the whole earth, you know, like that is not the ideal here. So just keep in mind, I have this fire, it needs to consume something. What does it need to destroy and consume in order for me to rebirth something new? Especially with this Ace of Chalices. This is the new beginning. This is what has to go in order to make way for this. You got your water, you got your fire, you got your air. And, you know, if we're going to talk about the dogs, maybe that's a friend of the earth too. So you've got all the elements, which is interesting too, because one of the piles today is the Magician, and that talks about you having access to all of the elements to create the magical life you desire. You just have to be the Magician and actually do it. So just do it, my friends. Time for this lunation to really set a goal tangibly. That could be relational, especially where you 6 months from now really want to see that fruit of some kind. Okay? So that concludes our collective reading. So we're going to move on. Sorry, Frank. I'm just like bothering her by moving too much. Alrighty. So we're now going to go to the pick a pile portion of this reading, where you get to choose your destiny. What are you resonating more with? And usually I do crystals, but today I intentionally picked 2 different tarot cards. Like I said just a moment before, I have the Magician. This is going to be pile number 1. So the Magician, again, is all about creating the magic you desire and knowing that you have the tools. It's just about actually making it happen and knowing, like, learning how to actually use the tools to create things. Because you could have, you know, a kitchen full of utensils, but if you don't know how to cook, you won't be able to make good use out of it. But you might need to learn and be like, okay, I'm going to look up tutorials, or, you know what, I'm just going to trial and error. I'm going to just try to see what works for me, you know? So that's the power of the Magician. So you're going to be pile number 1 if this card is resonating with you. And the other card that I chose today is the Lovers. And choosing this pile can be love related, like romantically, but also this card can also just talk about love in general. So if that is on your mind, or like getting deeper into relationships or Gemini stuff, that's what this card's going to be for. And just to let you know, why did I pick these 2 cards? Well, again, it's a Gemini new moon today, or well, in a couple days, I guess, but we're building up to a Gemini new moon at the time of this recording. Mercury rules Gemini, and this is the card. The Magician is the card that represents Mercury, and the Lovers represents Gemini, because it takes 2 to tango. Gemini is the twins. So yes. So without further ado, pick your pile. Pile number 1 if you're the Magician, pile number 2 if you're the Lovers. And we're going to get started with pile number 1s. Welcome, pile number 1s. You're pile number 1 if you are a Magician. We're all Magicians, but if you picked the Magician, this is going to be your reading. So, and I already talked about like the overview of that, but I do want to talk a little bit about this card itself because there's a lot of movement in this imagery, and it's surrounded by roses, red roses specifically, which I think is like really beautiful. Roses symbolize to me beauty, obviously. It's the highest vibrational flower that we have on this beautiful earth that we know of anyway. And it also is very special because it has thorns. So yes, it's very beautiful, but it has this boundaried energy about it too. And if you mess with it, you're going to hear about it. So it just really seems like you are a very magical person and you're creating the magic that you desire at this time, but also just be aware that, you know, sometimes what you wish for really does come true. So be careful and mindful about what you actually are wishing for at this time, because it seems very potent. And, you know, I don't know why revenge is coming up, but if you really want revenge on someone, just really be aware of if you're going to do it yourself, which I don't recommend that actually, because a lot of the time I think that the universe can bring a more karmically aligned punishment for that person, or consequence, I should say, than we can do. Sometimes I understand why people take it into their own hands and would like to facilitate karma. That's your choice to make, but I'm not condoning anything, obviously. You'll know, hopefully. But what this is really saying is that be careful what you wish for, because if you get cheated on or whatever, and then you want to like, oh, I want my cheating partner to like lose their job and their house and like all that stuff. But then you also realize like, oh, that person also lost custody of their kid, and now the kid is displaced, and now the kid has to pay the consequence of their parent, like, which isn't cool, And that was an unintended consequence of like all of these things that you really wanted the worst of the worst to happen to this person that wasn't actually karmically like matching their crime, So no overly punishing either yourself or others. That's just one example of how, your magic can be very powerful, and don't do something you can't take back if you're not willing to commit to that and not willing to live with what that decision is. Okay? And also just remember, you have all the magic within you. You have capabilities of doing things. So use your magic wisely, because there's consequences to that. Okay. So pile number 1s, we're going to draw an animal card for you and see what animal is offering you guidance at this time. And right as I said that, Frank does a little movement. She's so cute. Baby cats have a special place in your heart at this time. And we have the bee, which is all about community, which is what we're talking about in the overall theme today. It says, you are a powerful creator, that magician energy. Your work blesses everything you touch. Be open to receiving sweetness. You are the queen of abundance. Wow. Your work blesses everything you touch. I feel like that's really beautiful too. And there's like a sunflower in the back, or that's what it looks like the bee has landed on. And sunflowers are symbolic of detoxifying and also joy. Like, I think of yellow as a very Gemini color, very happy and playful and joyous. And that sometimes I'm feeling like the message with the sunflower is that joy can be detoxifying in a lot of ways. We have a lot of hard things that we have to face in life. And so the more that we lean into joy and love and things like that, the more that we are fortified from those harsher things in our lives. So, if things are always bad, always depressing, like, what is your motivation to live? Let's infuse more joy and also lean into our community more in order to find that joy. I really love that it talks about, I keep getting drawn to like, your work blesses everything you touch. Like, we all are connected. Like, each honeybee in the hive has to do its part in order for all of them to survive, and so I feel like this is your reminder that you have unique gifts. Only you are you. And so you might think that the little, I don't know, if you're a pastry chef, like the pastry that you made is just a trivial thing, and a pastry is a pastry, but that's something you crafted with the magic of your hands and your skill sets and love within yourself. So just really knowing your value and knowing that you're unique and we need you in the grand scheme of things. If you weren't here doing what you're doing, you know, who else would pick up the slack? Maybe no one could do that, you know? So just really valuing you as like not only an essential part of your immediate community and family, but really integrating into the world at large. You're playing a role. We're all here playing a role. So really own that and feel confident and feel your sense of divinity within yourself about like, I'm here to do purposeful work. The things that I create and share are purposeful and they make a difference, and it's up to you to decide what kind of difference you want to make, you know? So you're the queen of abundance. You can also have more. I'm seeing like self-worth too, because it's like honey is an expensive commodity these days. So, and it takes a lot of bees, individuals, in order to create this gold, this liquid gold. So just find the honey in your life, find your hive, and know who is contributing, who might be not, and just value yourself and your efforts. Because even if it feels small, the butterfly effect is a real thing. You know, small things can add up to be very big through time. Honor yourself, honor your magic. Okay, we're gonna now pick a truth or fate card. And you have the king secret. This is really cute. There's like an image of a king being like a puppeteer, doing maybe some storytelling with some kids surrounding the king, like listening. It's really adorable. It says, in a silent passage, you will find a sweetness that changes the world. It's like making me kind of emotional, because I feel like this is also reiterating what we're saying here. Is like, you're magic, you're special. And like, whoever told you you're not special, or whatever things have been shown to you that show you that you're not special. I mean, in some ways, I guess we're not special in the sense that we're all human and we're all, you know, not perfectly unique. But this is saying that like you have a lot of influence. A king that takes the time to play with the kids, you know, that's how he can, you know, cultivate an emotional connection to people, reach people emotionally, and not just be this higher than thou, you know, figure that can't connect. This is all about connection and just using your power and using your influence for positive things. It's just really sweet that the king can take his time to take off his crown, because his crown's in his lap. It's like, hey, I'm gonna like relieve my duties for a moment to have a moment with my kids, or a moment with the children of the kingdom, to be like, hey, I am your king and I'm here to serve you. I'm not just here to take from you. We're all in this together. We each play a role, and let's play. Let's investigate that through play. I'm still like feeling a little bit of an emotional energy. For an air moon, for an air new moon, I'm feeling the emotion. So the question on the back says, who was the last person you helped in life, and how did you decide to help them? Yeah, I think that's really beautiful, because sometimes helping people isn't always just like, oh, I'm going to a food kitchen and spoon feeding helpless people soup. Like, yeah, it can look like that. It can look like you volunteering. Maybe you should. But also it could be you holding the door open for a stranger who needs that. Or there's, yeah, like a mom with the stroller, you know, be like, oh, let me get the door for you. That helps her a lot, because you never know. Maybe she tried to struggle with the door, and that could have been her moment of breakdown. You know, you being that saving grace, that maybe meant nothing to you. It was just like, okay, no biggie. That wasn't a big deal. It could have meant everything to her. So just really be conscious and aware of like the impact that you have on people, and like making some decisions that even if no one's watching, you're watching, and you can live with yourself because of the decisions that you're making. Especially like, is anyone gonna get mad at you for not returning the grocery cart? Like, probably not, but maybe you should anyway. You know, I don't know. I mean, that's just one example, but I do see you kind of zooming out and seeing the bigger picture of all the little things that you do that actually really improve the world that we live in. Especially if you're not happy with what the world looks like. What are you doing? How are you using your influence to make it better? Because you have influence. Even if you feel like a little guy, even if you feel small, everyone has influence of some kind. So don't surrender that, because that belongs to you, and it really belongs to us too. We all can benefit from your gifts and your generosity. Don't overgive. I mean, there's always a balance of things, you know. Got to take care of yourself too. The king definitely is going to make sure he's well fed and all those things and well resourced before assisting others, like, you know, but this king seems great. Also, like, humbling himself, being like, I don't always have to play king. You know, I am the king and I'm going to take that seriously, that role. But also, I'm human. So I'm going to, like, connect with that side of me as well. Really connecting with your divinity and your humanhood seems important at this time. Okay? So my pile number ones, those are the messages that I have for you. Thank you so much for listening. And if you really like this video, please like, subscribe, share, maybe leave a comment as well, just letting me know what group you picked and what resonated with you, what didn't, or if there's any messages that came up for you that you'd like to share with the collective. Remember, your voice is very powerful. So, you know, you making that choice of interacting or engaging could be very impactful in some kind of way. So don't be shy. Trust your intuition and do what you need to do. If you want to get more of a deep dive of a reading for you personally, I do individual readings, both astrology, tarot, psychic kind of stuff. If that interests you, you can book with me at fortuneofthefool.com, and the more information about that will be in the show notes. So thanks again, and I hope to see you soon. Bye, fools. Alrighty. Without further ado, we're going to now move on to pile number twos. You are a pile number two if you chose the Lovers card, this fiery, beautiful Lovers card. And I'm seeing a lot of fire and passion in this card, and this is about relationships in general, but it also can indicate more casual love kind of relationships. So it could either be in the dating stage. If you're familiar with astrology, I'm thinking fifth house. That's kind of what I'm feeling for this. But yeah, that is what can also build up into something more serious and sustainable over time, you know. But this is more about like our day-to-day love connections with, you know, some more casual maybe connections. I'm actually feeling for this. So that could be your coworkers. It could be like a new love interest that you're engaging in. You know, I would say anything under 5 months, probably. Well, maybe even, we'll just keep it at that. So maybe also work colleagues that you're friendly at work, but you're not besties or anything, you know, things like that. Those casual relationships that can offer you a lot. So when I see the Lovers card, I do get called to the balance of love. So there's going to be a give and take, or there should be a give and take in any relationship. I mean, unless it's like an infant and a caregiver. I mean, the baby can't really give much except maybe a smile and, you know, good vibes. But this is really about, like, especially adult relationships, which if you're watching this, you probably should be an adult. It's really about acknowledging the balance that you have within your relationships of give and take. Like, again, not every relationship is going to be 50-50, especially not all the time. If you have a friend going through a really hard time, don't expect them to show up for you as much. Like, that's just common sense. You should help them more. But also, over time, if they've been down on their luck for like a year and you're getting exhausted, that's something that needs to come back into balance. The Lovers really talks about bringing things into balance. And also, what's drawing to my attention to this card in particular is that there's a lot of fire on one side, and then there's the earth fruit on the other side. And that's really about action and consuming versus receiving and building. So I do see, like, also a relationship takes two to tango. So what are you both building together? When you fight, are you fighting against each other, or are you fighting against the problem? Like, are you joining together as a team to tackle the problem? Because I'm just seeing maybe in this group that there's some exhausting relationships, or you're exhausting yourself with how you're perceiving a certain kind of relationship or something like that. So this is just your call to really evaluate what needs to be balanced within different relationships in your life, because some relationships might feel very balanced. Other relationships might not. So that's up to you to decide. And those relationships that are not feeling balanced, this is your time. This is your sign to address that now before it gets maybe worse. I know a lot of people experience fear about confrontation with people, but just reminding you that if someone can't handle your feedback, if someone can't handle a conversation, especially if you show up maturely and direct in a way that's like, hey, I'm noticing that, you know, a lot of times when we hang out, you talk a lot about yourself, and I love hearing about yourself. I just also don't really feel like I have the ability to share my stuff because of that. Is there a way that we can work on that? You know, if that person then is like really defensive and is like, well, like, that's just not true, or like, you know, whatever, I allow you to talk, you just don't say anything. You know, if they get like that and they don't come around, that's probably not a person that you want to continue investing your energy into. So, you know, regardless of the outcome of your confrontation, I'm calling it a confrontation, but remember, confrontation doesn't have to be like, we're battling it out, fists out and everything. It's just more like, hey, we have to talk about something, you know. It doesn't have to be a battle. It just is maybe a harsher conversation, depending on how you feel about conflict or confrontation. But I do see like a resolve of like, just have the conversation and you're going to know, instead of like spiraling in your mind or spiraling or just wondering. Like, is this right? Is this good? Whatever. Because sometimes people show their true colors and it's great. And you're like, cool, I want to keep investing in this person because they just are really chatty. They didn't realize that they were not holding space for me, or they thought that I would just share if I wanted to share. And now they're going to ask me more questions because now they're more aware. You know, if that's, you know, how the outcome of that conversation goes, that's someone you want to continue investing in. But if again, they get more defensive or, not willing to understand where you're coming from, that's not really someone that you probably want to invest in, because that anxiety of like the worry that you had about how that person would react, you know, was truthful, you know, that had something. Oh my gosh. Now Frank needs to urgently lick her beans. So my little beans. Okay. My beauty beans. That's what I call her. So anyway, that's kind of like the Lover's energy. And again, it could be a romantic relationship, but we have love for a lot of different things. I will also say, when this card comes up, sometimes it also is talking about an object or a hobby or something that we love. But again, is it balanced? You might really love fixing up cars and things like that, but maybe it's costing too much money to actually make that worthwhile for you. And so you might have to set boundaries and being like, okay, I just can't go hard on this stuff anymore because I literally can't afford it. And it's causing me more grief than joy that I'm looking for, you know? So really evaluating the love that you have for different things in your life and really seeing what's worth it, what's not, what might need to pivot or change in order for us to return to the group message of nourishing new beginnings emotionally. Okay. Now we're going to choose an animal card for you. See what animal wisdom is going to offer you some support at this time. And we have the bison. Bison. This is what they look like. The card looks like. And the key word is abundance, which is nice. A lot. And I've loosened up on this hot take. I used to have a bigger hot take about this, but I've kind of loosened up about it. But basically my hot take about the abundance word is that abundance really at the core just means like a lot of things. So abundance doesn't necessarily always mean good. It just means like a lot of things. I think of that like Jupiter, the planet, as well, because it is generally benefic. It generally is a good luck planet, but it also signifies a lot of something. And sometimes too much of something is actually not beneficial. So I just wanted to say that in the sense of sometimes more is not better. Sometimes less is more. So abundance can be like, again, like in spiritual spaces, a lot of people are like, oh, abundance, like prosperity, all those things. Yes, that can be really lovely to have enough, and not only enough, but more than you need. So then you can, again, share it or just have enough for later. But I was called to just tell you that, like, again, sometimes having more isn't always better. This card reads, Sacred Buffalo, cloak me in your wisdom, keep me warm through the storms of life. Fill my life with goodness. Teach me the ways of gratitude and prayer. Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, and it seems like all of these bison are out in the cold and they're keeping each other warm. They're huddled up. There's a little baby and they're all taking care of each other. So yeah, I feel like the main message for you is just to be grateful for what you have instead of focusing too much on what you don't, or focusing too much on trivial or earthly pursuits that are temporary. Again, that was like the big message at the beginning, was like, everything's temporary. You can't take your bank account with you when you die. You know, you're going to have to leave that behind. You come into this world with nothing, and you're going to leave with nothing, except for the soul experiences that you had and the lessons that you learned. So this is just reminding you that even if you're going through harder times, or, you know, like a conversation doesn't go as favorably as you thought, or whatever it is, know that you have a lot to still be grateful for, and you have your community. I just feel a lot of protective energy for this group. And just remembering that sometimes abundance doesn't have to look like $1 billion in your bank account. It can look like, oh my gosh, I know that if I knock on my neighbor's door and I need an egg or something, they're going to give it to me. That is abundance. That is true prosperity. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Some people are so poor, all they have is money. So don't be so overly focused on, again, like earthly trivial things. I'm not saying that money's trivial, because we all need it to survive. And like, that's the world we live in. Like, I love money, love it. You won't catch me saying I hate it. You won't. But there is, I'm just seeing this as like, things are deeper than the money sometimes. Sometimes you paying for your peace of mind is worth it. You know, sometimes like maybe you'll have an ex or something that's like keeps pestering you for $300 for, you know, like, I took you on all those dates, like, you owe me this. You know, maybe you don't really truly owe them that, but just to get them to shut up, it's worth the $300. You're just like, okay, here you go, bye. You know, sometimes that's just worth your peace of mind. So just really, I feel like this group especially needs to prioritize inner peace. What does that look like? And how can I get it more? And sometimes it's worth the extra cost financially or earthly in order to have more peace in your day-to-day. You can't put a price tag on that stuff sometimes. Well, sometimes you can, but you know, sometimes it really is worth it. All right, I'm going to draw us, I was going to draw a card, but then it wasn't. It's like, no, I'm not the one. So group number 2 is, if you have a question in mind, this doesn't always happen, but if you have something you really wanted answered here, like say you wanted insights about a certain relationship or a job, whatever it is, think of that now. This card is going to help you have little insights. And remember that spirit speaks in metaphors, and spirit doesn't always speak directly to you like I'm speaking to you right now. You might have to work for the message a little bit, not gonna lie. But that it's all about the journey of discovery. So just keep that in mind as, you know, we investigate this question or whatever's on your mind, whatever topic. This is what spirit has to say about it. It's a fate card. In fact, we got a bunch of different ones. We got a sign card for the last group. We got a truth card at the beginning. And now we have a fate card. All right. And it says demons of shame. And it's like this naked figure in the middle surrounded by a dragon or some sort of demon maybe. Yeah, it's spooky. It looks a little creepy, a little scary. But don't worry. All messages here are supposed to be empowering. So don't be scared. It's okay. I mean, or be scared, but just know that there's always light at the end of the tunnel with those kinds of things. Your fear is telling you something. All right. It says, fools will hide in shadows. A beast will attack from behind. Face them to fade them. Ooh, I like that. Okay. First, let's talk about the imagery. The imagery is someone naked, surrounded by a demon. That's a very vulnerable position to be in, right? So what this card is really encouraging, though, is that the more that we face our demons and the things that we, like our shadows, the things that we don't want to see, the more empowered we actually truly are. Because once we're naked, like, yeah, that can be like, oh my God, I'm naked. That like, I don't want everyone to see all my bits or whatever. But the people who are like, yeah, I'm naked. And so what? You have a body too. You know, like if you own it, if you own your shame or if you own your vulnerability, it's a lot harder for people to use that against you or for you to use that against you. So I do see like you coming to terms with some truths. You know, there's a lot of things about myself that I am ashamed of, or like I don't want to share with the world because I'm like, oh, that's like gross, or like, oh, like society doesn't like that. You know, even about my queerness, like there's a lot of people I'm so grateful that are who came before me, who were pioneers in order for me to feel more secure in my queerness. But also at the end of the day, like I still have a lot of insecurities about like, dang, I'm different than certain people, and I have certain attractions that some people think are demonic or are wrong, and that feels hurtful, you know. And it's a journey that I'm still on. I've been out publicly for several years now, and I'm still experiencing these moments of shame and yeah, just uncomfortable feelings. But I really like what this says is, you know, face them to fade them. If you want to take your power, which you definitely should, claim your truths. Claim the shadows, because you can't have the light without the shadows, and you can't have the shadows without the light. So, you know, if you lean too much into one, you're going to have an imbalance, which is what we're trying to talk here about. The Lovers is really trying to bring things into balance, especially socially and mentally. Mental health issues. That's what I'm feeling for this card too. So maybe now's a good time to ask for more support, or getting, you know, I'm not really one who promotes medication necessarily, but if you need it, you need it. If it's helpful to you, it's helpful to you, and there's no shame in that. So maybe getting some additional help, especially if it's a mental issue or addictions coming up. This looks like the devil card in a lot of ways, and that to me talks a lot about like having a hard time moderating, which I'm an addict. I know a lot about the issues with that and how hard that can be. But there are certain tools and things that can really help you through the harder things that you have. So don't be afraid to like look to your community. That's what the bison were telling you. You have these resources, and you're loved. You're divinely loved and protected. The Lovers talks about not only the love that we have between human to human, but also the divine love, the love that the universe has for us, and angels and things like that. So just know you're not alone, and whatever you're ashamed about or whatever you feel like you have no control over, facing it head on is going to be your best bet. So this could also be, I feel like for different people, it's going to be different things. Cause I'm also seeing someone who's like in crazy debt or something. And it's like, oh, well, I'm just going to keep ignoring the bills. I'm going to just keep ignoring it. But you can't ignore it when the lights turn off. You can't ignore it when credit cards will stop loaning you money, you know? So you know what? It sucks, but maybe you should file for bankruptcy. It really sucks, but hey, you know what? That's there for a reason. So, you know, something just, it seems like maybe a hard truth, just facing it now could unburden you so much. It's like, yeah, that sucks. I filed for bankruptcy, but now I have like a clean slate in a certain kind of way, and I can rebuild without feeling like my past is defining that. I don't know a lot about bankruptcy. I've never filed it, but just one example of that. So this is saying that you're supposed to choose someone and ask them this question, but you can also just answer this for yourself, or maybe this is a journaling prompt that you want to investigate in order to get more clarity about your question if you had it and you're still wondering what it's about. It says, in one word or a short phrase, what makes you scared or anxious about life currently? After you answer, pause, then tell us why. So what's making you scared or anxious about life currently? You know what? I want to answer that for you. Well, not for you. You answer it for yourself, but I'm going to answer it as an example. Like, because I think Spirit's also telling me. Sometimes I do these readings for other people so often that it's like, well, are you actually reflecting as well? I feel like the best leaders, which I do see myself as, like, they lead through example. And I want to just do that for you if you want to have an example. But what makes me scared and anxious about life currently is all the uncertainty. Honestly, all the things I can't control. I love to be in control in a lot of ways, and there's so many things in life that I just can't, you know. But what I can control is myself and the decisions that I make and how I show up in this world. And that does give me solace. But I will say, like, I still am very scared and anxious about what is happening to our earth and what's happening politically, especially in my country. And I definitely don't want to fearmonger myself, but I also want to see the truth of things. And it's really hard to see the truth of things when I don't know what the media is telling me or what kind of propaganda that I've ingested, because all of us experience propaganda. I'm in the US, I grew up with advertising, like everything's an ad, what is true or what is manufactured in order to give you a certain sense of something. Like I went to the doctor today and I have, it was just a checkup. I'm good. But like I have really hairy legs because I'm trans and I don't feel like I need to abide by society's ads telling me, oh, you're ugly if you have that hair. You're unhygienic if you have that hair. Like you're gross if you have that. That's what was ingrained in me from a really young age. And it took a lot of deep processing and modeling, honestly, for my sister. I'm so thankful for her for leading the way with like, no, hairy legs don't mean I'm gross. Do you think men are gross for having hairy legs? Like, no. So, but when I went to the doctor and I was showing her my foot, that thought crossed my mind again, like, oh my gosh, like my legs are hairy. Like, is she going to think that I'm gross? Is she going to think that whatever? And it's like, first of all, she's a doctor. She's probably seen worse, she's seen a lot of things, but also why do I have to be defined by that narrative? And why do I still have to experience anxiety and questioning my self-worth because of something that naturally grows in my body? So I feel like this is a really interesting card talking about shame and just like where's our shame coming from, and just also acknowledging that sometimes it goes in cycles. Sometimes we can feel really confident, like I go out of the house with my hairy legs, be like, who cares, whatever. But also I get things in the media or things that are like, oh, people got hate crimed for these kinds of things or whatever, or like, I don't want to get harassed or called ugly or things like that because of the way that I choose to groom myself. Also, I'm a very clean person. So if you know me, you'll also know that like I'm very insecure a lot of the times when people think I'm dirty or gross, or if I feel like I'm dirty or gross. Like it's a big thing for me. And again, that came from younger shame too. So, there's some work to be done there about like, how is your shame also holding you back? Is that keeping you from being authentic because you're so worried about what someone else thinks about you? Also, like a doctor who's a stranger who, is probably not even going to remember me, Like, is that moment going to be important for her in 5 years? Like, no, definitely not. So, fools will hide in shadows. Don't be a fool. In this case, I promote, it's good to be a fool. There's fortune in being a fool, but there's a difference between being foolish in a productive way versus a destructive way. Being a fool, being open to learning things, that's what the true foolishness, that's what a good foolish wisdom is all about, is that recognizing that we all at the end of the day are fools. There always will be something that we will be humbled by life, but don't be a fool in the sense of, hey, you've learned this lesson before or better. That's why you're a fool, because you're making decisions that are not favorable to you or your loved ones. So, something to consider. Very powerful reading. And this group feels really fiery as well. So, very red, and red is associated with our root chakra, which is all about like our sense of security. And so this might be a good time to also just be honest. That was like the financial veil being revealed, that example earlier. It's like, what is the truth of my financial situation? Because if you keep putting it off or keep avoiding it because you're scared of it, the demon's going to get bigger. So this is your sign saying like, no matter what it is that this demon or demons that you're experiencing right now, especially the ones that are interfering with your sense of security, that needs to be nipped in the bud right here and right now. Because I'm seeing my front yard, because my front yard is full of weeds. And it would have been a lot better if I pulled the weeds when they were babies, but now they're just growing out of control. And so now I'm going to have to hire someone to take care of my weeds, like a professional, because I didn't take care of it when it was smaller. Now it's getting bigger. And I will tell you that I'm still anxious about it. And I'm like, oh, I don't even want to look at it or deal with it because I'm worried about my neighbors judging me. And like, I'm worried that it'll be so expensive that I can't, afford it or whatever. But it's like, it's going to just keep getting worse unless you just address it right here and right now. And this was also not even the first year that I've been experiencing this. Like, this is nothing new, but for whatever reason, it feels like a very burdensome for me. So anyway, those are really the messages that I have for you, pile number twos. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this served you in some kind of way and offered you some helpful messages for where you're at right now. And also just keep in mind that sometimes these things might not click for you now, but through time, you might be like, oh, that's what that message was. You know, so just keep an open mind with like how this might come to you. Like bison, I don't see those on a day-to-day basis, but you know, maybe you see an image of a bison or like a little crystal bison in a store and you're like, oh, that's reminding me about my abundance and my community, you know? So something to consider. If you loved this reading, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also leave a comment. I would love to hear from you, especially if you feel like you have something to share that you experienced in this reading that other people could benefit from. This is a community space that I'm trying to build. So if you would like to be part of the community, this was pile number one's card, I think. No. This was the group card. So yeah, we're all a community here, the bees. So if you want to heighten the buzz, you know, feel free to make your voice known. And if you want a more individualized reading from me, I am a professional astrologer, tarot reader, and psychic. You can book a reading with me at fortuneofthefool.com, or you can just look in the show notes. It's going to give you a little bit more direct way to book a reading with me. If you are here in Denver, Colorado, we can do it in person, but also we can do it virtually if you are not here. So also keep tuned. I'm like, so many messages coming through. If you are in the Denver area, check out our events. We do in-person events, new moon event. We're actually doing one tonight for the Gemini new moon. I'm really excited about it. And we also do tarot events. If you want to learn more about tarot, if you're a beginner, if you're advanced, there's always knowledge to learn there for you. And also we have an astrology meetup, and why can't I think of my magic meetup? Obviously, me and my friend Mia, we're doing a magic meetup every last Sunday. So if that interests you, check all those out. We'd love to interact with you in person and learn together. So thank you so much for watching, and stay foolish, friends. Mwah. So sleepy. You slept through the whole thing. I'm so proud of you.